We're so interesting. We make life more fun. At least I do. I bet you do too. Hello, welcome to the Chirp YouTube channel. My name is Christy. I am your friendly online speech-language pathologist and specialist in children's communication development, which includes behavior, because behavior is a type of communication. Today is another video in our series on how to interact with simple strategies better with kids, specifically kids who have communication or developmental delays or disorders. This tip is easy. Get in the way. Get in the way. Most of the kids that I work with have very particular preferences and are very focused on those particular preferences. And of course, we all do. I love iced tea. I love chocolate chip cookies. I have communication strategies to get those things when I need help with them. Our kids with communication delays have figured out strategies to get what they want as well, even though they don't necessarily always use traditional communication methods to do so. And sometimes that includes just climbing on the counter and getting those cookies herself, or climbing on the counter again, I guess in this case, to get ice to put in the cup to make iced tea. Sometimes this includes simply doing a sensory behavior, such as driving a car back and forth, because it meets a sensory need. You can find my series on sensory strategies, sensory modalities, and strategies we can use to help kids with those modalities right there. It's my favorite series that I've ever done, and learning those things transformed the way that I interact with kids. So I hope that you go watch those videos. But if you already have, stay here and let's finish this little discussion, shall we? Okay, let's assume that the child wants to get on the counter to get the cookies herself. How could we use the get in the way strategy to help this child interact better? Lots of options. Option number one, we put the cookies in a box that the child cannot open. Strategy number two, we put the cookies in a closet that the child can't open because there's a child-safe lock. You can see from the path that I am meandering in this conversation that we're trying to make things more difficult for the child. And this is exactly the opposite of what most of the families that I work with want to do. They want to make things more simple for the child. They want their child to be independent, to be able to get things that he or she wants. But being independent is not the main goal for a child with a communication disorder. The main goal for a child with a communication disorder is to learn to communicate more effectively. And that is going to mean they can't do everything themselves. It's going to mean they need to learn to ask for help. They need to learn to request specific items. They need to learn to repair communication breakdowns. None of these things will happen if your child simply gets whatever she wants on her own, which is going to be her tendency if she does not have the communication skills to request. So we need to get in the way, and then while we're in the way, we need to model what the child could do or say to communicate more effectively. With the example of the cookies, let's say, because I just had a chocolate chip cookie. I just baked them this morning. I thought a friend was coming over. I thought, won't it be nice if the house smells like freshly baked cookies? And it is very nice. So this is why the cookie scenario came to mind. There are fresh cookies sitting on my kitchen counter right this minute. Let's say there's a child in my home who has a communication disorder of some kind. And let's say I know that chocolate chip cookies are this child's very favorite cookie. very favorite snack in general. And so I see the child going into the kitchen, climbing on the counter. But because I am a speech-language pathologist and a specialist in children's communication disorders, including behavior, like climbing on the counter, which is not safe, I can read the child's mind. And I know she's going to get up on the counter, grab a few cookies, go hide in her room and eat them. Even though I have told her that, that's not how we do things around here. She's going to do that because communicating that she would like cookies is very difficult for her. Perhaps she has not learned it at all yet at this point. What I'm going to do is I have already sneakily put the cookies in a box with a very tight top on it, a glass container maybe with those snap-on edges that I know her little fingers are not strong enough yet to open. So she gets to the counter. She reaches up to get the cookies and she realizes they're in a box. She can't open it. I need to be present at that moment, and I need to be present with my modeling, with my visuals. So of course, here again is the series on how to use a communication book, how to use visuals. I'm going to put always my favorite books on the topic or down below. I will highlight them with some stars in this video. The best one is called Visual Strategies for Improving Communication. Thank you, Linda Hodgson. Your book is the best. So go read that book because it's fabulous. And it's not really reading it. There's a lot of visuals for grown-ups on how to put these strategies into place. My recommendation, if I know that this child is going to want cookies, I'm going to have a picture of a cookie that I took and I printed and I laminated, and I'm going to stick it on the counter. And then I'm going to put the cookies in a box. I'm going to maybe even hide the box, but when my child comes over to the counter where she normally would grab the cookies by herself, she's going to see the picture of the cookies. I'm going to help her hand me the picture of the cookies. I'm going to say, cookie please. I'm going to get a cookie. And in fact, because I'm a speech-language pathologist and a specialist in children's communication development, I'm not going to give her the whole cookie. I'm going to break it into 4 or 5 pieces, and I'm going to give her one of those pieces. And then I'm going to put all the rest back in the box and put it up on the shelf. But I will leave the picture there. She's going to have to ask for the cookies 5 times. Instead of just getting the cookie herself and never having any interaction, never practicing her communication skills at all. Now that is a scenario for a nonverbal or minimally verbal child. She had the picture. I helped her hand the picture to me. I modeled what she could say, cookie please. And then she got what she wanted.
Set it up and then you can roll the ball. Thank you, sir.
No.
Can I put crackers?
Cracker.
Ready? Put one here. You go. No, we're not going to sit down here. You're going to sit there so you can roll it. Stand up.
Jackson, thank you for that. Very good cleaning up.
You know what
We're going to put them on here.
lightsaber.
You're going to help me set it up so you can roll the ball and knock the pins down.
Cracker.
Okay, you put that one
What
down.
the?
Put it on the
Here,
table.
buddy.
Cracker.
Another one down. You put this one down?
35 minutes.
I can't let go of you.
Cracker.
You're fall, okay? You need to stand on your own.
I want pretzels. I want crackers. Fruit snacks. Fruit snacks. Yummy. What a good choice. Fruit snacks. I'm excited. Fruit snacks. If we have a child who is more verbal, but who still doesn't choose to use these verbal skills to ask for things or to communicate need, I'm going to model it verbally as well as using the picture, but I'm going to kind of expect that my child is going to verbally repeat what I say before I provide the cookie. So for example, the child comes over, the cookies are in the box, they're up on the shelf. He can't get them. I know that he can use 1 to 2 word phrases perfectly well. He just doesn't choose to do it in most circumstances because interacting is hard for him. Communicating with human beings is hard for him. So, I show him the picture. If he does not participate, I help him hand me the picture and I say, "Cookie, please." "Cookie, please." And I wait, and it will be uncomfortable. But the child needs to process the fact that here's the phrase he needs to say in order to get this object. And I know that he can do it. We need to incorporate this period of waiting. And I know this is hard because families are busy and you just want to get the kid independent. I must repeat, independence is not the main goal, especially for children with autism spectrum disorders. The main deficit in an autism spectrum disorder is engagement and communication. It's not a lack of independence. Independence is great, but independence without being able to communicate, without being able to request something, ask for help, is not safe. If you think about your child out in the world, as a 10-year-old maybe, do you want your child feeling like I can get whatever I want whenever I want it? Or do you want a child who can say, "Bus stop, please"? Or do you want a child that can say, "Call mom. I need to call my mom"? We need kids to be able to communicate. And they won't learn to communicate if we don't force the issue because it's hard. Just like us. How many of us, as we age, lose our strength, lose our flexibility, lose our cardiovascular ability, and maybe get a little chonky, and we don't pay any attention to that until we have a medical scare, until we think we're having a heart attack, or until we actually do have a heart attack, or until someone in our family gets diagnosed with something and we think, "Oh no, I'm next." And then we start paying attention to our physical health a little more. Sometimes human beings have to be a little bit coerced into learning new skills and into becoming better at things that are hard for us. And this is one of those cases. We need to get in the way to make things more communicative, more interactive. And it can be playful. It can be fun. It should be relational. It should not be a business transaction. "Cookie, please." "Cookie, please." "Here's your cookie." It should be, "Cookie, please." "Cookie, please." "Cookie, please." "Great, cookie." It should be fun. It should be encouraging. The child should be excited because he or she is getting better at something all the time. It's getting easier. The more times we do a hard thing, the less hard it becomes because we acclimate. We want our kids to acclimate to communicating and to getting their needs met. Good job, bud.
Oh, you say red, please.
I want red,
Say
please.
red, please.
You just did.
I want.
Hey.
Nice job, Aiden.
I want blue, please.
See, it doesn't take that long. We're practicing. Oops, we can't. Oh, good job. When we put the swords in, we can't push on the pirate, otherwise he might not jump.
Shoot.
That's right. Take all the swords out first.
Take them out.
One more. Okay, now you can put them in.
Pirate in. So wait.
You have to put them in and spin them a little bit. Spin. Now he'll stay down. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on this channel. When I got into graduate school for speech pathology, to be a speech pathologist at this point in time requires a Master's of Science degree. When I got into this graduate program, I was expecting to work with post-stroke adults. I was very interested in the brain. I was very interested in what makes humans think and communicate and speak and all the things that can maybe go a bit amiss in the brain that affect communication. But when I worked with patients who'd had strokes, there is often so much brain damage that, and I'm not talking about transient ischemic attacks where the problems resolve and you can't tell that anything happened. I'm talking about big strokes, an actual brain damage event that affects movement, speech, feeling, all sorts of things. When I first started working with these patients who had had strokes and they were in rehab, a rehab facility, I worked in a hospital for a little while and a rehab facility, and I didn't like it at all. And the reason was because all I could do was teach compensatory strategies most of the time. The body could do some. Swelling would go down. Sometimes some blood flow would return. But for the most part, if someone had a major stroke that affected swallowing and it hadn't come back in the month that they'd been in the hospital, it's probably not going to come back. And I can thicken your liquids. I can teach you to monitor your airway. I can teach your relatives how to feed you safely, but I can't fix what's wrong with you. It's broken. And I found that depressing. And then I started working with kids, which I had not expected to love. But every single thing that a child learns can change their lives. If I start working with a nonverbal child, which are my favorite kids to start working with because there's so much opportunity, teaching that child how to request water changes her life. Now she can request water when she wants it. It's a miracle. It is a miracle to watch kids connect these things that they weren't previously able to do. And you, as the family member or a therapist or someone at church or school who's working with this child, you can be part of that miracle too. And we do have to get in the way. Some people call this playful obstruction, which I think is a nice term. There are some other terms for it too, but I like to think about it as getting in the way. How can we get in the way when a child is doing a sensory activity that doesn't seem to us to have very much meaning? Of course, it does have meaning. It's either soothing or it's interesting, or the child is learning something by watching the physics of the wheels go around. No behavior is meaningless just because we don't understand the meaning. But it's not very interactive. And I like children to be interacted with as much as possible because, again, human interaction is very difficult for most children who have communication disorders. And so we need to do it a lot so that it becomes less difficult. It's a hard thing. The more we do it, the easier it will become. And the more the child will realize how fun it actually is to interact with people because we're so interesting. We make life more fun. At least I do. I bet you do too. What I would normally do is I would take a car. I would join in what the child is doing at first. I would drive my car back and forth. Not for very long though, because I get kind of bored. And then I would take another car and I would crash it into my car. And I would be very surprised. Usually the child stops and looks at my two cars and looks at me a little bit, maybe out of the corner of her eye. Because looking at people directly on is kind of hard too. And sometimes the child will try crashing two cars herself. If not, I've just confused. Which gender is this child? I don't know. I'm going to keep on going back and forth. I try to be equitable in these videos. I don't like the plural they for one particular child. I find it unnecessarily confusing, but I want to make sure that both girls and boys are represented. In this case, it's cars. We're going to say it's a girl, and she's driving this car back and forth, I drive cars back and forth, and then whoops, another car crashes my first car, and I'm so surprised. And then she's surprised, and either she watches me do it and kind of smiles, or she watches me do that and then she imitates me, or she kind of ignores me altogether. It's very rare that a child ignores an adult imitating their behavior and then tweaking it a little bit. Usually a child thinks, oh, that looks kind of fun. And usually the child is very impressed if we adults imitate what they're doing and start there, rather than instructing them, hey, drive your car this way, drive your car that way, drive this other car, put this person in the car. So many times adults are very bossy. And that's not very fun for kids, especially because they don't like interacting with us that much to begin with. So usually they pay attention. Usually it really sucks them in when you imitate them and then when you change one tiny little thing. If that doesn't pull the kid in, I indeed will crash my car into the child's car and say, oh no, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? And again, I will wait. And then I might give the child a choice. Okay, hurt. And we kind of go from there. We kind of play. And then, of course, we have to return to the original behavior regularly throughout our play session, because that's soothing, that's known. The child kind of feels like she knows what she's doing when she's doing that. When she's playing Crazy Crash Way with Christy, she might not know exactly what to expect, and that can be a little much. So we're always adjusting based on the child's response, and it can be very tricky. It takes practice. But from this video, I want you to take away to get in the child's way, to get in the child's world, to move yourself or your play self in the form of a car or a person into the child's regular routine. Think in your life right now, what is one thing that your child is too independent with, or a student? Your child maybe, how do I even think of an example? Puts on clothes in the morning all by himself, which is great. We want our children to be able to do that. How could we make that more communicative? And this is just one example. You're not going to want to do this in every area of your life all at once, because your child's going to get frustrated and you're not going to have any time to yourself. And you do need some of that. I would much rather your child spend time when you're doing stuff. I would much rather your child spend it getting dressed than on screen time, watching TV or playing video games, because those are less interactive, even than getting dressed all by yourself. But let's just give the example of getting dressed. We could put all the clothes up high. We could post a picture of different colors and ask the child, what color top? Maybe you take pictures of the different tops and let your child pick a top and a bottom every day. It's getting more interactive because the child is making choices, but we're talking about it. It's not quite so independent. I'm going to repeat it for a third time. Independence is not the main goal of working with kids, especially kids with communication disorders. We need to work on the communication, even if that means our child cannot do the thing without us. We kind of want the child to not be able to do the thing without us, because we need to be necessary for the child, or the child isn't going to want to communicate with us. Well, that was a lot of information, and I imagine it was a little bit challenging to many people's worldviews, because it's kind of opposite, as I mentioned, to what most families want for their child, or what they think they want. However, think of your higher priority. Your higher priority is that your child is communicative, is able to functionally request, ask for help, get directions, all those things that communication does for us. Only then can a child truly be independent. Well then, if you want to, you could give me a thumbs up, but you don't have to. If you want to, you could subscribe, but once again, you don't have to. If you do, it doesn't cost you anything. It does help me, and it does help other families or professionals because it helps YouTube show these videos to more people, which can help all of us because we all need to keep getting better at our mission in life, which is helping these kids to feel more welcomed in our universe and helping us to understand them a little bit better. Thank you for being here. I will see you in my next video. Bye.